Let's go through what a Roth conversion is because there's so much confusion. I see them basically as you should avoid them at all costs, or you should always do a Roth. But you need to know what they are, first of all, how they operate in real terms, the errors about them, and there's so many, the pros and the cons, because there's both a heaven and hell when it comes to a Roth, and should you do one. We're going to cover all those topics today. The first one to cover is the function of a Roth. Basically, it's very simple. You're going to pay tax today to avoid taxes in the future. That's pretty much it. And if there's a benefit for you to pay tax today to avoid taxes tomorrow, it could be good for you. It's not always necessarily the case, but for some people it is, especially higher net worth individuals. It can help certain people and actually hurt others. It's based on the timing of when you do things. Now, I said before $2 million, you can be well under $2 million and have a need for a Roth. It's not just based on $2 million and above. There are serious reasons to do a Roth for even people under $1 million, especially when it comes to legacy planning and how they plan on giving their money in different ways to other people. Because when you give money to other people, you have to think of their tax bracket, not just yours. Let's go through what a concept behind the Roth is, because they're meant to be tax neutral. It's not meant to be, in theory, a tax savings. It can be, again, based on timing and use, but here's how it's supposed to be done mathematically. And just trust me, if you don't like math, just work it out with me. Let's say you start with $1 million in both cases, a Roth or a non-Roth, and the market doubles. Well, if you're in a non-Roth, it'll go from 1 million to 2 million. When you convert that at a 25% tax, you're left with $1.5 million. Let's do the Roth. You pay the tax up front. You pay the 25% up front from the 1 million, and now it turns into $750,000. Now, of course, the market doubles. You see you're at the same exact ending point, 1.5 million to 1.5 million. Well, that's the concept of a Roth. So who are they really made for? Well, they're made for people initially who wanted to invest in their own businesses or do self-directed IRAs where they were either incredible investors or they wanted to invest in their own businesses. In this case, Peter Thiel took $2,000 and turned it into $5 billion tax-free. Now, because of this, they changed the laws of a Roth. So don't think the laws on a Roth are set in stone. They're not. They're just set in stone today. Tax law can always change, and that's just the unfortunate nature of taxes. But this has actually prohibited you from investing into your own businesses. Today, there's now rules where you can't invest into any family members' businesses, you can't invest in your own business, but you can still do a self-directed Roth. That's perfectly acceptable. So why do them for retirees? Well, it's a timing issue. When you think about it, you don't want the government to necessarily be your partner in the gains. But that doesn't mean necessarily it's a bad thing for you to avoid them. It's a timing issue, how much money you have, the income you make. It's literally, think of it this way. It's an arbitrage. Is it cheaper for me to pay taxes today to avoid tax tomorrow, or is it better just to pay the tax and don't worry about it? Again, it's different for every single person. So if you're looking for that one golden answer, it doesn't exist. It's based on timing. So this is why I'm going to give you the whole picture, not just the piece of do Roths, do Roths. Also, when you think about it, your heirs might be in the highest bracket. So if you have children and they're close to the highest bracket, well, pretty much any bracket under their bracket is always a tax savings. So by converting your Roth at a lower bracket than your heirs, it's always going to be a benefit. Now, here are the current brackets for 2024 and 2025. And you can see in these brackets that it's going to be important for you to understand that 2025 is the last year of these lower brackets. Now, this is the single bracket, and this is the married brackets. So these are your brackets today. Now, these brackets are going to change in 2026 because the laws are sunsetting. And when they do sunset, the 10% is going to remain the same, but the 12 is going to 15, the 22 is going to 25, on and on. Typically 3% more in every single bracket, but they've actually added an additional bracket back. So all we're doing is going back to the tax code before the law that came in 2017. One way to use a Roth, which is actually very effective, is when the market drops. Because when the market drops, you can actually convert your money. Now this is a timing issue. When the market drops and then you reinvest, when the market comes back, when it comes back, it's coming back tax-free. So if you can invest somewhere in a large drop, and I mean a significant drop, you can actually reap benefits. Now, if it's a small drop, it probably won't help you very much. So don't think, oh my goodness, I have to do it right now. But if the market drops significantly, a Roth can be a good thing. Now, it can be super scary because your portfolio went down 30, 50%, and you're like, oh my goodness, now I have to pay taxes as well? Well, overall, it's a benefit, and it can be a big benefit for you from a holistic perspective, not when you do it and you're panicking. So why converting for most people when it starts to make sense? Now let me get the elephant out of the room. Converting for a lot of retirees makes no sense, because if you're using standard deductions or good itemizations, all the first monies that go into your account comes in tax-free. Also, your Social Security is taxed at 50% eventually when you get past a certain bracket, or it goes up to 85% of the income. Now, that's not a tax bracket. It's how much of your income is being taxed. So when you look at it from that perspective, it's not as if, especially for people who are retirees that have, I'm just saying as a rough estimate, under $2 million, a huge benefit or any benefit at all doing a Roth, unless you're going to convert in low market environments, because your income has to be high enough where it's triggering IRMA and other considerations, or you've seen a lot of money one day, you don't know why. Now, this is a sample tax return. This is not someone's actual tax return, because you can't do that. But this is a hypothetical return given to me by a client. And again, I made hypothetical numbers. This way, it's not the exact numbers. But here's something very similar with just a few changes of a few numbers. But you can see here, this is a single woman making $121,000. Now, if you take the standard deduction, she's at $106,000 of taxable income. Her entire tax base for $121,000 is $19,000, making her effective rate 16%. Now, one thing they like to do when they show these Roth conversions, and this is really just bad math and just a really bad way to look at it, is she really wanted to convert to a Roth. She was determined to do a Roth conversion. Oh my goodness, just bent out of shape. I had to actually show her a sample return. Again, change the numbers, but the overall picture is about the same. She wanted to convert so much money. Instead of taking it out in any kind of traditional methods, she wanted to do the Roth conversion. And you could see how her tax base, her effective rate, went from 16 to 24%. That looks like, oh, it's only 8% different. What's the big deal? Well, it's called the marginal rate. We don't look at things in an effective rate for the conversion. If she wanted to convert $181,000, she was going to pay $51,000 in taxes. That means her real rate of tax on that conversion was 28%. Never in her retirement was she ever going to hit 28% in taxes. So it would never make sense for her to convert. But again, there's other reasons too, like I mentioned before, like about your heirs, falling markets. I'm just showing her from an income perspective, it makes no sense from an income perspective. So again, when you're looking at this from doing a Roth, and it's about getting cheaper income with cheaper taxes in the future, your nerd tip for the day is to look at the marginal rate that you're going to pay. So think about how much money am I converting, how much money am I paying in tax, and divide it. Don't look at the effective rate. That's not actually important at all. The other consideration are these IRMA taxes, which I think are completely unjust. Now, you've already paid in Social Security, but if you make too much money, you got to pay more money in Social Security. And this is the IRMA brackets right now. And you can see they can be as high as $594 a month. That is roughly $420 more every single month if you're in the highest bracket. Plus your Part D goes from $12.90 to $81. That is a massive difference. That is close to $500 every single month in taxes. And this is where Roth can make sense, especially for high net worth individuals, to do Roth conversions to avoid the IRMA tax. But here's where we have to be careful as well. There's also these people that show these sunshine lollipops projections of how a Roth can help you, because on average, you're going to make 6.5% if you look at the compounded rate. Not the average rate, but the compounded rate. The compounded rate, let's say, is 6.5%. If you take the average of the compounded rate of 6.5%, and you're starting with $2 million, you're going to be at $2.42 million if we use just simple compounded averages. The problem is that the market doesn't move like that. And it doesn't make a difference where that 24% is, if it's in year 3 or year 1, because you're going to be at $2.25 million. And that's why average returns or average compounded returns is not helpful, because what they want to show you is that if the money is put into a Roth and your average compounded rate is 6.5, it comes out to some, again, sunshine lollipops number, but they're not factoring a lot of things, because sequence of returns risk can make this number far less than 2.25. And that's why you have to look at the average returns that you would have got over the market in real terms, not just using average compounded or Never use averages. If you just use your average rate of return, it will be a unmitigated disaster. But even using averages that are compounded is still very inaccurate and will always show you a better number that will probably actually exist when you factor in the sequence of returns risk. So who do I think should convert? Now, if you fit any of these criteria, it will work, okay? Typically, if you have over $2 million, a Roth can be a benefit. If you have IRMA considerations, it can also be a benefit. If you have RMDs triggering ARMA, yep, there's a benefit there. If your heirs, now let's say for example, you only have $500,000, but you have a lot of income because you have a pension, you have a really big annuity paying you a lot of, whatever it is that's paying you a lot of money. It's consistent. You have some really high income, but you know that your heirs are in a very high bracket. Well then, this is a great play for you. What if the market drops a ton? Yep, do it. It's a great idea. Any kind of low tax years, especially the years before you start drawing Social Security, a Roth can be a benefit. So this is how a Roth should be looked at from a holistic perspective that's not overly simplistic, always saying that Roths are these big benefits using sunshine lollipops numbers. I don't like them. So if you want to learn more about that, watch more of my videos